let's get it. Well, we'll go ahead and get started with our first guest tonight. Here he is himself, the guitar extraordinaire virtuoso, Mr. Byron Nemeth. Byron, man, how you doing? Nice to see you.
Hey, how are you guys doing? What's going on?
Hey, man.
Not too bad, not too bad. How's everything where you are right now in terms of, I guess, I mean, I know, but well, first let's go over what you've been up to. Okay, you've been obviously real busy, Byron. You've got a new single out called Engines of Thunder. That recently was released, I believe, like a month or so ago. You also are currently, I know I saw you in the process of doing a video for the track that you've also put together, and a great new website as well. So let's just go ahead and tell us a bit about what you've been up to musically as of late. What can we expect, to hear and see from you in the near future during this crazy, pandemic that's been going on the last 8 months?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I just put out the audio single for Engines of Thunder last month. And just last night, I got done filming the video for it. The video went really great. It was done here at Wavestream Studios in Phoenix, and it was sponsored by Sonic Boom Productions. And the video came out spectacular. And right now, we're in the middle of editing the video, and that should be released in about 2 weeks. And the hope is to put that out and just get it circulating and get the music out through the video.
Awesome, man. Yeah, no, it sounds great, man. And the new single, Engines of Thunder, like I said, I think it's a great song, and it's also, to me, it looks like you're doing what a lot of musicians are starting to do, which is releasing singles rather than full lengths due to, obviously, I'm sure a lot the short attention span that most of your average music listeners have these days. So I think it's easier to just release singles instead of releasing these full lengths, right? Because it's like people listen to them, maybe they listen to it once, and it's like, okay, what's next, right? So that's what a lot of artists are doing, obviously. Some are doing EPs as well. And although it makes sense, to not go full bore, with a full-length release for, obviously the reasons I was just talking about, do you think by going the singles route that, a lot of people are doing, a lot of musicians are doing, do you think that could also possibly inhibit you from, gaining a larger audience and a fan base because it might not be enough for some listeners today where, they want to, even though they don't listen to the whole album, it's like they want to see it, or else they think, well, he or she's not serious enough. They're just putting out a single here and there. I mean, I know it's a way to, obviously you got to be creative these days. So, I mean, why are you releasing singles instead of EPs or full lengths?
In my opinion, I think the music business model has changed, and this is just my observation. I think it's changed to a single versus album model, and I'd like to take that one step further and say that I think the right way to do it for the moment, things could always change with technology, and the world, but for the moment, I think what's important here is not just to release a single, but to release a video with every single. And I think that's really, really important. And in terms of it not being enough for the audience base, what's important here is to get on the schedule and to try and release a single with a video approximately, every 6 to 8 weeks or so, and just do that as an ongoing cycle and never stopping. And what that'll do is that'll help the presence of the artist stay within the mindset of the audience on a continuous basis. Bands that record 12 songs, wait a whole year to record another 12 songs, they're going to get lost in the shuffle of the internet. And what's important here is to have a consistent delivery of single with video on a very consistent timeline. And I think that's, for the moment, that's the proper business model, in my opinion.
Sure. Now, yeah, I'm gonna play devil's advocate here, Byron, just because and to be honest, I agree with you that it is the way that we're going. However, I think it puts you guys, and especially, not the Metallicas of the world, but the smaller bands that don't have infinite budget, it puts you guys in like a perpetual work mode because you always, you can't take a single day off where you're not working somebody to get onto their playlist or getting into their, onto their YouTube page or getting Brave Words or whatever to do a premiere. It just seems like it's taken the art, the time that you would invest in the art, and turned it into business. And for artists, especially a guy like you, who I know is artsy, it feels like it's almost forcing you to be more product based than artistic. Is that fair?
You have to be both at the same time, Chris. You really do. And you have to approach it with that mindset, because you have to deliver the art for yourself and for the audience base. But at the same time, you have to be able to a degree, realize that it's a business, and it takes up time. There's just no way around it. And you have to be involved in both capacities, full on all the time, if you really want to do it. No one is forcing anybody to do it, but if it's in your heart to do it, and if you're an artist and like yourself, we're both entrepreneurs, we're both in technology, and we both love music. If you want to do it, then you just do it, and that's where we're at in the world. It's a personal choice, and we just do it because we love it, and we do it because we're business guys. So it's both at the same time, all the time.
Right. Now for you, I find it interesting, and to be honest, I actually, I was thinking about this afternoon. I find this to be actually a better model than I think a lot of people think of, that you didn't release the video the same day that you released the song, because really, in a lot of ways, if you think about it, it's two different audiences. There's the Spotify music listening audience, and there's the video audience. And I don't think one correlates real well with the other. I don't think if you have a successful YouTube video these days, that's going to necessarily mean you're going to get any plays on Spotify, or vice versa. I almost think by staggering it a little bit, you actually play better into gaining fans, because you're going to one, if somebody hears it on Spotify and then a month and a half later they see a video, it revitalizes the track. No matter which way they do it. And B, it doesn't seem like you put all your eggs in one basket. You realize that there's two different audiences, and you play to both on unique terms. Is that a thought process, or is it just the way it worked out for you?
You just laid out my exact game plan. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. That's exactly why I did it that way, because I wanted to get more traction from the same song. As an audio piece by itself, and now as a video piece coming up. That way you get a little more time, a little more traction on the exact same song. Yeah, that's it. That's exactly the right plan, for sure. Yep. One more thing I'd like to add to to the art of it and to the business of it is besides the music, we need to have some commerce that we can try and make some money off of it, and that's why I launched my merch store. I launched it this summer, and I have a whole line. I'm sure you've been on my website. I'm selling hoodies, selling T-shirts that are all behind me, and and it's going well. It's going real well, actually. And I think that helps. The music, the audio, and then the video, and then the merch store, and then a pro-looking website. It's all encompassing, all into one. And now that I have investors involved with Sonic Boom Productions from Florida and here in Phoenix. It's a good overall strategy to continue doing what we're doing, continue putting out singles and videos on a timely manner as we move towards a situation where we can begin thinking about touring probably sometime next summer or next fall, give or take a little on where this pandemic sits with all of us.
Sure. Byron, so many, musicians, obviously, these days, they try their best to encourage their fan base to buy their physical product. But yet, it's just so hard to beat and compete, with having a virtual jukebox on your phone to play music when and where you want it. Right. In your opinion, what, if anything, can artists do these days in order to compete with that type of convenience? Because, in the end, the labels will always, they'll always be fighting to get their piece of the pie. And you're not going to get any help, obviously, from the streaming service, as we're seeing with, through Spotify, obviously. So it's sort of up to the artists themselves to sort of put their collective, feet down and just say, hey, listen, enough is enough, even though at this point in time, unless you're a really well-established artist, you can't really do that if you want to obviously get your music heard. You almost have to have them on those streaming services. What do you think artists can do these days to kind of compete with, that the model that is out there right now?
You have to be a total entrepreneur, and you have to find investors. That's the answer.
Simple. Yeah. Okay.
That's the answer. You have to come to that realization that this is a complete DIY situation, and you have to bring in sponsors, and you have to hunt down investors, no different than starting any other business. And you have to be able to have the gumption, the will, and the desire to do that. And I think that's the answer, because you're always going to have the desire to create music. That half is always playing, it's always on, and will always be on. But you have to bring in a situation where you're your own label, and you keep upping that ante and keep going with it. And that's the answer. I don't see any other scenario, because I don't see a major label helping out any one of us. I just don't see that as reality. I think that's total fantasy, actually. I mean, theoretically anything could happen, but it's highly, highly unlikely. It really is.
Byron, what are they investing in? Are they investing in you, the entrepreneur? Are they investing in the business or the talent? Is I guess what my question is, because it's doubtful they're investing in both. They're usually going to say, well, you're super talented, we'd like to have you on our roster, or you really got the gumption to make this work, we're going with that. So in your experience, what are they investing in?
Actually, it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
Yep. And it's starting with this video that I shot last night, and we're gonna pursue it and see where it goes with myself and Sonic Boom, and it's off to a great rip-roaring start. Video was super professionally shot. We spent a lot of time with it. I got there about 10 a.m. in the morning. We didn't finish till 7 o'clock at night. We were shooting the whole time, and we got a lot of great shots. And we're just gonna take it one day at a time with super focus and a great schedule, and just see where it goes. And I feel very excited about it. So it's a little bit of both, Chris, to answer your question at the moment.
Cool. Yeah, well, we are seeing, like, for instance, we've got the guys we have up next that are coming on the on Tremors Live here, both Sean Peck and Ross DeVos Freeman. Their band Death Dealer. I mean, what they're starting to do. I mean, this is, I guess, a lot of ways that some of these artists and musicians are pushing back. Is they're only releasing 3 or 4 songs from the record to the streaming services. And if you want to hear the rest of the record, you have to buy the product. Do you think that is a viable way to go about releasing music instead of doing singles and EPs? Or do you think just basically because streaming isn't going anywhere and because it's so cost effective and convenient for the average music listener, that they're just never going to go back to buying music like they once did and buying CDs and vinyl like they once did? I mean, do you think doing that by releasing maybe a few songs to the streaming services and by doing that and then trying to sell your whole product, the whole album, do you think that's something that could possibly work?
I think that's entirely dependent on where the fan level sits with whatever particular artist. If a band or an artist can reach fans that would qualify as super fans, and that's rare, then a super fan will buy anything. They'll buy vinyl, they'll buy cassette, they'll buy 8-track. But the trick is, can an artist, any unknown artist, can they reach fans, and then can they make the fans super fans? And that requires an incredible amount of work. Amount of work. So to answer your question specifically, I think the answer is yes, but you have to get them to be super fan status, and that takes a long time. First fan status, then super fan status, and then you can start, potentially, thinking about maybe selling CDs, selling vinyl. But I think in the early stages, and we're talking unknown artists here, we're not talking Metallica. In the early stages, where any unknown artist is at, I think the model that I described of audio first, then video, and then doing that in staggered fashion is the best way to do it, for sure, because that way your resources can be pooled into doing videos. And I think that's really where it's going to bring in the early fans, assuming, of course, you have very, very strong material.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. That sounds great. I just want to get off the business part here. I'm going to go now to, obviously talking about your music. And what I've noticed, obviously, you're someone who's been in, obviously, full bands, but you also do your solo, your solo music and your solo projects in terms of, like I said, you're a virtuoso type of guitarist and you play the instrumental type of music. And what I've noticed over the years is when it comes to instrumental, whether it's hard rock or metal, is that it's not easy, to get on, obviously, very large bills or really tour packages as well with a lot of traditional hard rock and metal bands. It's obviously it's easy to get, kind of, I'm saying easy, but it's easier to get on a local bill. But obviously full-length tours are, very hard and rare for instrumental bands and musicians. And really instrumental artists, have sort of its own circuits. Is something that me and Chris were talking about when we kicked off the show tonight. Do you personally, having been in both, do you personally prefer playing those circuits, the instrumental circuits, where your fans and the listeners are going to pay close attention, and they're going to be probably a little bit more welcoming to your music? Whereas if you're opening for like a more well-known, traditional hard rock or metal act that has vocals and has a singer, I mean, regardless of how good really as a musician you are, a lot of people, a lot of fans or that are at the show are going to sort of maybe not give that instrumental band or artist a serious listen because there's no vocals or lyrics to it.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that can be difficult at times. The way that I'm looking to resolve that is to do both instrumental and vocal music, and maybe lean on a little bit more on the vocal end of it, and maybe have the next 2 or 3 songs be vocal songs, but still occasionally do the instrumental stuff. That way, satisfy both audiences, and maybe lean a little more on the vocal end so that we can have a little wider range for sure. And I think what's important too is for the moment, because again, things could change with technology. My focus here is on doing, really hooky, catchy songs that are about 4 minutes long, instrumentally and vocally in the near foreseeable future. I'm not thinking super epically long, epic songs, and believe me, I love them, totally love them, like I've done in the past, and those are totally great to do. And I might do one down the road, but for the foreseeable near future, I'm thinking about 4 minute songs with vocals, majority, and peppered in with a couple instrumentals to try and satisfy both audiences. And I think that's a smart way to do it.
Sure. Yeah.
Now, Byron, I'm always curious, and you're one of the few I can ask this to, because you you obviously have done bands and you've toured, and you obviously toured, recently with Doro and Metal Church when you were with the Images of Eden, and it was successful. And then you've gone back to doing now instrumental stuff as well as some stuff with vocal. When you're putting songs together, what tells you what to use? I know how you musicians are. Y'all never look. You can't even do an interview without holding your guitar. You can never sit down and be away, man. And you guys are constantly writing stuff, and you're constantly looking for riffs. What is it about a riff or a sound or a structure that tells you this can work as an independent song without a voice, or this needs a voice? How do you decide that Engines of Thunder did not need a voice? What goes into that thought?
That goes back to kind of like jazz studies, and just being a big fan of like Miles Davis and his great album Kind of Blue. And what I mean by that is, the way that he played, he was instrumentalist, and his playing was the voice. So there was a hook to that. And I apply that very general principle to writing my instrumentals. And I'm looking for a hook in the lead. So with this song, Engines of Thunder, I structured it with a verse section and a chorus section that were definitive, catchy hooks, if you will, with guitar lines. So it was a feeling of just wanting to make sure that we have really strong hooks in the line that's being played, and that's where it comes from. It comes from a little bit from studying jazz and a lot of just having it feel good to my ear of how I'm feeling verse versus chorus structures in a 4 minute instrumental song. And just looking for hooks, basically.
Sure. Do you put consideration when you're creating, not after the fact, but when you're actually creating a song, do you put any consideration to what the song is going to be used for down the road? Do you ever think, well, I want to write something that could be the end of a chick flick, or the action scene in a Fast and Furious movie, or stuff like that? Or do you just write and then kind of go where it goes once it's done?
No, I write completely artistically and just let it go. And the only small parameter I put on it is just that it'd be about, on the 4-minute side of length by design. To do stuff for movies, would love to do that, but that's a whole different type of composition. For that type of composition, I would be working with a filmmaker, and we would have long conversations as to what he or she would need to be able to have in the film. So I would be composing for scenes. With this, I'm completely composing as a standalone artist. So there's a difference to that.
So it's different, and I did not know this. So it's different than the old days, I guess, of when you would get Vision Quest, and there was a bunch of songs that really had nothing to do with riding bikes or whatever Vision Quest was about, but they were by Madonna and John Wade or whatever, and it was like, okay, they're the big artists. It's a different ball game with instrumental music and movie producers.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Because with like Vision Quest and like that, they were looking to bring in the famous artists, is what they were doing. But if you're not a super famous artist, you're probably working directly with the filmmaker to do soundtrack music for their film. And if they want to take my songs as is and just stick them in, I would totally welcome that. But more likely than not, they're looking for moods in specific areas, and you're soundtrack composing rather than just taking Engines of Thunder and sticking it in their film. Could happen if they wanted to. And again, I welcome it, but I think soundtrack composing, that's a specific thing for sure.
For that world, and I don't even know that you're in that world, but I don't know why I'm down this rabbit hole. But for that world, would the music that you've put out away from it, would that act almost as the primer to convince somebody that you could do music for a movie? Like, would a producer see the Engines of Thunder video and think, okay, this is a cool song, I could see where this would work on a script that I'm working on? Or do you just have to have an agent that pitches you and does it that way?
It would be a little bit of both, actually. It definitely would be a little bit of both. And what would happen, I would think what would happen is that the film producer would hear Engines of Thunder and just kind of like it as an instrumental song. And then he or she would probably approach me and say, hey, I love your song, but that particular song, Engines of Thunder, may not work with my film. Can you compose an instrumental that's a little more like this or a little more like that to fit my film with a flavor of that, but bring in other elements? And I think that's what would happen once they heard, my catalog, and or once an agent could connect me. So it's a little bit of it all, actually.
No doubt, man. Well, Byron, right now people can hear Engines of Thunder. It's the latest release from Byron Nemeth. And Byron, what can people expect, let's say, the next 6 to 12 months from you? What's coming next, and what kind of, I know you don't have an exact timeline, but what kind of timeline are you thinking of?
Yeah, well, again, in a couple of weeks here, the full video release, and you'll see that all over social media. And then, I've already started working on the next song. And again, I'm going to focus on that being a vocal song. So I'll have a group of musicians around me with a great singer for that. And that would be the next single, the next round. That would probably be sometime after Christmas, I would think. And then, we hope for a stronger, better, healthier world, and hopefully get some information on a vaccine, and try and look forward to hopefully touring this summer or in the fall, In the meantime, I'm still, working on material. We've got a lot of time on my hands, so that's what I'm doing.
Very cool. It sounds like you're talking a little crazy there with vaccines and the world getting healthy, my friend.
Got to hope for the best, right? Hope for
sure. Yeah, no doubt.
Exactly.
Got to stay positive.
Yep, I'm with you, man. Well, I'll tell you what, Byron, before we let you go, why don't you throw the plugs out one more time where people can check you out, where they can buy the merch. And I suggest they do buy the merch and don't just look at it. So tell people where to go and where to buy merch and where to hear the song and all that good stuff.
Just one location, and that's at my website, byronnemeth.com. That's it. It's all there.
Awesome.
Very good, man.
Fantastic.
Well, Byron, it's all, me and you go back a zillion and a half years, man. So it's always good to chat with you, man. And good luck with it, man. I hope it does good for you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Take care, Byron. Take care.
Take it easy, man.
Thanks for listening to Aftershocks. For more episodes, go to our website at www.aftershockspodcast.com. Visit us on our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages for more news and information on the podcast. And be sure to subscribe, listen to, and review all episodes on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all other podcast platforms. For your music listening pleasure, visit our website or go to www.shockwavesradio.com. For all comments and questions, please email us at info@aftershockspodcast.com.